You're listening to What the Folklore, making sense of senseless tales.
Happily ever after. Tra-la-di-di-hi-di-ho, the princess, she walked happily home. Tra-la-di-di-hi-di-ho, she lived happily ever after.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to What the Folklore, making sense of senseless tales. I am your reader, Carmen.
I'm Tyler.
Gordy. It's the cleanest we've done in a while. Let's keep it moving.
Alright, so, damn, what do we say now? I just lost it.
Well, we should let our listeners know the terrible contract they've just signed with us.
Oh, that's true. By downloading this podcast, or otherwise putting it in your ear holes, you are now contractually obligated to hear a weird and sometimes stupid tale from somewhere in the world. Is that the right one? Is that the right contract?
Yeah, but there's an addendum specific to this story tonight.
Oh, would you like to take that away?
It's easy enough. This is a two-parter, so we think, as of right now.
Probably. So
We've been given a heads up from our reader that this is a long, winding one.
This is 100% a two-parter.
So you have a life debt to come back next week and finish it off.
So if this is your first one, sorry, but you're going to have to listen to at least two of them.
And what we mean by all that is our mission statement, our corporate mission statement is we, being fans of fairy tales and folklore, have been delving into the strange and weird ones that Disney doesn't want to get a hold of, because most folklore was pretty unregulated, and it ends up being really, really weird, and we want to answer the question, why was it written down, and why are people still talking about it? Why do those really bizarre ones with no apparent plot matter?
So for the past many episodes, you two have had some say in what we read, usually through a pointless exercise of choice.
Complicated and clandestine means.
And
Yes.
I do have one of those.
You're not going to get to use it, though.
Okay.
Because every now and then, I need to exert my power over the two of you and remind you of your exact place in this podcast, and the fact that you had any illusion of choice to begin with was really just to help you feel more complacent and in control as you were strapped down here and forced to hear these tales.
Well,
really?
Guess what?
What?
It worked.
Awesome.
I'll cut you all out. I'll cut the whole thing. I'll blow up the game. I get final say.
Do you want to be the one delving through all the folk tales
Nah.
to
I'm
find
fine.
the ones to read? I'm also, while I'm in this position of rogue agent, going to take back our mission statement a little bit.
Oh?
We are going to be touching on territory that Disney has put its paws on.
Oh ho?
So you know that movie Frozen?
Yeah?
I've heard of it. It's a music video, right?
Yeah, it was a pretty big one. It was a long, 90-minute music video for the song Let It Go. Technically, Frozen was based on the Hans Christian Andersen tale, The Snow Queen.
Now why did you luxuriate on that word?
Well, because after reading the Hans Christian Andersen tale, The Snow Queen, I conclusively determined that the things that Frozen and the Snow Queen have in common are that there is
that
ice
snow is in it?
and there is snow.
And a queen?
Yeah, I guess she does
Royalty.
become a queen.
I do like a good technically. So we're gonna read the original Frozen.
Yes.
The OG Frozen.
This is Frozen before...
1.0.
So we're reading Ice Age?
Yes, essentially.
Or Ice Age 2?
No, this would be the first one.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds good. So what do we know about this one? What can you tell us to inform our journey tonight?
Well, I am sourcing this one from the surlaloonfairytales.com, but I did cross-reference it to a few other translations because it was, of course, originally from Denmark, being a Hans Christian Andersen tale. So not originally written in English, and some different translations give some interpretations. For the most part, it's a pretty solid one. This one was written in 1845, and Surlaloon sourced it from Hans Andersen's Fairy Tales, translated by Mrs. Henry H.B. Paul in London, Warne & Co., in 1875. So this is an 1875 translation of an 1845 tale.
Okay.
This is basically Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale chapter book.
It's a novella.
Yes.
Would you call it his magnum opus?
I would call it proof that he and Dalnois would maybe have gotten along.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I'm glad that was made clear to me before I agreed to do this.
Are there other kinds of opuses?
Other than a magnum?
Yeah.
They're minor opuses.
Probably.
Tangential opuses.
Just a kinda opus.
Is there like a medium opus? I've never heard of an opus that was less than absolute, basically.
I mean, if it's not a magnum opus, why are you talking about it?
Right.
Like, if there's a better opus out there.
And can you surpass that?
Magnum opus?
Yeah.
Bestest opus?
Can you think that you've created your opus and then go like, nah,
Oh, okay, you two.
that old shit?
Remember that whole, this one's a super long one, we're going to have to do it in 2 parts?
Yeah, I'm just curious.
I'm whipping you two into shape.
Okay.
We're going to get focused now.
All right.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Do it.
Let's go.
Hit it.
Alright, The Snow Queen. Story the first. You have to listen to this story, because in the end you'll know more about this particular hobgoblin, who was
Color me
basically
intrigued.
the worst. In some translations he's a sprite.
That would be Olaf? Right?
Should pinpoint that early.
That's what I'm guessing.
This hobgoblin slash sprite was the worst and a real demon.
Those are very incongruent descriptions of a being.
One day, he found himself in a merry mood, and it made a mirror that distorted everything that looked into it. So it would shrink the good and beautiful and emphasize the bad and ugly, so lovely landscapes viewed through it looked like boiled spinach, and people became hideous, looking like they stood on their head and had no body.
And that's this guy on a good day.
He's in a cheerful mood.
That's just him having a good old time by himself.
Yep.
That's him on a lazy Sunday.
That's him building model ships in his basement.
Firing up the spinach mirror.
When a good or pious thought crossed a person's mind, it was misrepresented in the glass, and in one translation, it shows up in the glass as a hideous grin.
That's a hell of a mirror.
To look at people's thoughts.
Yes.
And represent them physically.
Yep.
Some marketing to be done. That's early VR.
AR, at least.
Yeah.
Well, the demon finds this all very amusing. And everyone who went to this hobgoblin demon school, because he kept a school...
Buried the lead on that.
He runs a school?
He runs
or
a school.
Like people who graduated with him?
No, he keeps a school. All who went to this guy's school, because he kept a school. It does say that.
BT Dubs, headmaster.
Would talk about the wonders that they had seen, and claimed that now everyone could see the world and its people as they really were. So, I guess the students of the school carried the glass around until there was not a land or a people who hadn't seen the world through it.
So this is just a school of Nietzsche's.
Yeah, essentially.
Who think because it's awful and bad and the opposite of good things, it's how things actually are.
It's either that or they're just lying to people like, no, guys, this is the total truth, look.
Like, that's a weird assumption to make, isn't it? Just because it's the inverse of how things appear, that it must be true.
Yeah. It's an equivalent fallacy, I think. If a lesser encountered one.
Well, either they believe that or they're being tricksy.
Okay. They're just saying that.
Right.
Are they all demons? Or is this school open to anyone?
Are they learning to be demons?
They don't tell us a lot about the school, but at least some of the people who go to it can fly.
Okay. Is that part of the curriculum?
Well, they decided they were going to fly the mirror up to heaven to see the angels through it.
Okay.
But the higher they got, the slipperier the mirror became. And in at least one version, the weird grin from the pious thoughts just kept getting bigger and bigger until it shook the whole mirror.
This is just a grin?
Yeah, it's just a grin.
Where?
In the mirror.
Just superimposed over everything?
Reflected it. I have no idea.
It's like
Is
cartoon teeth and eyes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is it the Cheshire Cat in the sky?
in a mirror.
That's how I'm imagining it.
And regardless of whether it was slippery or vibrating too hard, they lost their grip on it and it fell to the world. And shattered into millions of pieces.
As mirrors are wont to do.
Now it's causing more problems because some of the shards were the size of a grain of sand and they flew into every country. And if someone got one stuck in his eye, he wouldn't know it, but he would start to see the world in a distorted fashion.
I can see why that would be a problem.
And if one of the mirror shards got stuck in someone's heart, that heart turned to ice.
That's...
Just like Frozen.
Yeah.
But
kind of.
But also that's a really... It doesn't seem like that's a likely outcome.
It might be metaphorical ice.
No, I'm not worried about the ice heart thing.
You mean
I'm worried about the shard of glass somehow reaching somebody's heart.
I don't know. You can get stuff in your lungs all the time, so.
But the lung is not
close enough.
The lung is not plugged into the heart. Like one's for air, one's for blood.
Yeah, but
does it have to puncture you?
There are vessels.
They're a vessel. I mean, maybe the grains get stuck in your bloodstream and they just travel up to your heart.
It's a roundabout way to get
but
there.
Still, it's a hell of a shot.
Some of the shards were large enough to be turned into window panes, and others were turned into spectacles, through which nothing could be seen as right or good.
This is a big mirror.
Yes.
So all of these students were simultaneously carrying it.
Yeah.
Because they had to.
Yeah.
The whole...
It takes a school to carry a
mirror.
The whole squad had it tied between them, I guess.
The wicked demon laughed until his sides hurt, and there were still a lot of shards floating around in the air. So here's a story about what happened to one of them.
Okay, Hans.
Yeah.
Hans was setting up, like, the Marvel Universe, and then decided to tell one story instead.
This is the... I don't know.
Like, all this bad, terrible shit could possibly happen thanks to this event. Let's look at one of them.
I'm gonna call it now. That would have been a good reveal at the end. You get to see one bad story, and then the camera pans out, and you see...
This shit's happening everywhere.
Yeah, you see it everywhere.
Alright. Story of the second.
That was one chapter?
That was one chapter.
Oh, we're good.
That's our shortest chapter.
We're almost done.
We're cruising.
One down, 6 to go. Right?
Yep.
You want to just kick it for a while? I feel like we have some extra time.
Guys. It was like half the length of any of the other chapters.
We're fine.
Alright, in large towns, there's not enough space for people to have a garden, so they have to grow their plants in small flower pots. In one particular large town, there were 2 poor children with a pretty sweet-ass garden solution, because these 2 children lived in garrets across from each other, so like little attic apartments, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a water pipe running between the 2 houses. The 2 kids were not brother and sister, but close enough to be, and their parents each had a wooden window box for garden herbs and a little rose bush. The parents got the idea to use the water pipe for more flower boxes, and the roses grew across it and made just a whole wall of flowers. So these kids might be poor, but they have a much cooler garden than anyone else.
At least.
The kids could go outside together and sit on the stools under the roses and play and talk and whatever. But in winter, they could not, because it was cold. The windows would get frozen over, so they would each heat pennies by the stove and use them to thaw a little hole in the window so they could stare at each other from across the way. So there's like...
endearing.
Made window peepholes and
Very
stuck
sweet.
one eye through.
You can stare out your window at another tiny hole in somebody else's window where an eyeball waits for you.
You think... Did they get, like, the paper cups and string phone rigged up across there?
I don't think the technology had been made yet.
It's pretty basic technology.
Yeah, well...
Do some penny tapping SOS.
Yeah, or at least semaphore? What do you call those things? Aldous lamps?
Yeah.
Where you can signal to each other? There's got to be a way to do it. Maybe they could just shout across the street.
Probably could do that.
Their names were Kay and Gerda. And while summertime was a lot of easy fun for them, in the winter they had to climb stairs and walk through the snow to see each other. Like a normal...
So, yeah.
Typical.
So, they're not particularly bad off. They have to do what every human being does in winter.
So one day they're hanging out and Kay's grandmother remarks on the snow, calling it white bees swarming outside.
Oh, Grandma.
You and your...
Losing her dang mind. She sees bees everywhere.
His grandma with the bees again.
She saw the one Oprah meme and it just broke her.
It's her worst fear. She foretold in a prophecy, the white bees will come.
Kay asks if the white bees have a queen bee because he knows regular bees do, and she says, yeah, see where the snow's the thickest? That's where she is. And at midnight she flies around breathing on the windows and making frost in the shape of flowers and castles. And the two kids agreed that they had seen this.
They wait, to appease her? Or they went like, oh yeah, like, we definitely actually saw this happen?
I don't think they're saying they saw the woman doing this, but they'd seen the effects.
The effect.
Okay.
They are familiar with the outcome.
They're not allowed awake at midnight. They're kids. They've got bedtimes.
If you want to convince children of something, of this, I think B is a bad way to go.
Why? Why is that?
I'm not aware of bees doing a lot of breathing in the way that we understand it.
Well, she's pollinating the windows
Well, that's different.
with frost.
That's different.
Grandmother just doesn't keep bees. She doesn't have all the
Grandmother is not a scientist.
Gerda asks if the queen can come inside, and Kay says if she does, he'll set her on the stove and she'll melt. And the grandmother pats his head and then tells them more
I was
stories.
going to say, that one's the boy, right?
Yep.
The one who wants to murder and destroy
Yep.
this person he's never met.
That is true. He is the boy. One day, Kay was home half undressed for some reason.
In the winter?
Yeah. Just hanging out.
All right.
Shirtless, I guess.
He's doing a Greek pledge. Probably.
Flexing in the mirror.
He's trying to rush Phi Kappa Alpha. Is that a real frat?
Could be.
I don't know.
Those are Greek letters.
I didn't go to one. Alpha Omega? Seems like a very dire fraternity.
While half undressed, he climbed up to look through the little peephole he'd made in the window, and he sees a snowflake larger than the rest of them
It's the bee.
drift and land on the edge of one of the flower boxes. You have a comment.
I have a tangent. I
Okay.
don't know if it's worth our time or not.
Well,
Well,
But Gordy said the phrase dire fraternity.
yeah.
And that's a D&D thing if I've ever heard one.
A dire frat.
Yeah.
Is that a monster in D&D that is the member of a fraternity
Right.
No,
with
I
the
think-
dire template?
I think that would have to be
It's
a
a
full
coven.
fraternity.
Yeah.
Like, you have
Yeah.
to fight the whole,
A coven of creatures.
I mean, they are covens,
the bro squad.
aren't they?
basically.
Fraternities are just modern day witch covens. I know what they get up to.
They do rituals.
Yeah.
It's close
They
enough.
do sorceries.
They wear robes
They ingest strange substances to alter the mind.
and then cackle
Yeah.
with pointy noses
Yeah.
and hats.
And they have warts.
And they use candles.
And they make brewskis. Which is brewskis.
Which is the Witch's Microbrewery. That's got to be a good business. If any of you out there are brewers, start that up.
And then credit us.
Send us one.
The snowflake grew larger until it assumed the shape of a woman who was beautiful but made entirely of shimmering ice. Her eyes sparkled like stars, but there was no peace or rest in their glance. She nodded toward the window and waved a hand, and Kay got frightened and jumped down, and at the same moment he jumped down, it seemed like a large bird flew by the window.
So Grandma was wrong on all counts. There's no bee.
Not a bee in sight.
Just ice lady.
This is an ice lady and a bird, which is different. They're related.
I can see where the mistake was made.
Bird and bee.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to have a talk about that to tell the difference, right?
Maybe this is her way of easing them into that talk.
That's a strange way to go about it, Grandma.
She's just presenting the idea that there are bees.
You have curious teaching methods.
And
I
then
mean-
later we'll present the idea that there are birds,
Mhm.
and then we'll talk about penises.
Naked ice women.
The next day there was a clear frost, and then a thaw, and then there was spring.
Whoa.
Yep.
Quick turnaround.
And I guess spring happened with nothing going on, and then it was summer with the roses blossoming.
Time skip.
Yep. Gerda learned a hymn about roses, and she taught Kate, and they sung it together, and it's just roses bloom and cease to be, but we shall the Christ child see. Which is
Good hymn.
not a very long or interesting hymn, but it does mention roses, so...
Relevant.
They hung out in the garden all summer, and one day they were looking at a book full of animal pictures when the church bell struck 12, and Kay cried out, oh, something has struck my heart. And then, something has struck my eye.
He got 2 of them?
Yep.
Got the 1-2 punch.
He got 2 bad shards?
Gerda puts her arms around his neck and looks in his eye, but she can't see anything in there. Kay says it's gone, but it wasn't, because it was a piece of the mirror. He then tells her to stop crying, so apparently...
She took that hard.
Yeah.
That news.
He's very, very worried about him. Well, wait, they're not related, right?
No, they're...
But they might as well be siblings.
They're close enough to be siblings.
So it's going to be weird when they
make out later.
Inevitably get it down.
He tells her to stop crying because it makes her look ugly, and then he looks at the roses and said, this one is worm-eaten, and this one is crooked.
It's a quick-acting Shard.
They're ugly just like their boxes. And then he kicks the boxes and pulls off the 2 roses.
So really just... The mirror shards just kind of make you a general pain.
Yeah.
They just make you angsty.
And a downer.
And a dick, because he then just kind of turns into a terror child all the time.
Just kind of a grump.
Like, he's nasty to Gerda.
He didn't seem that nice before.
Not great.
Because he threatened to burn a queen bee for visiting his home.
I mean, he is a young boy.
Mm-hmm.
So...
It's just amplifying those effects.
You've never burned a bee.
They just want explosions and fire.
Yeah.
He mocks people behind their backs. Like he starts with his grandmother during the stories. He'll go behind her and start imitating her. He became really good at imitating people's worst flaws, and people would see him do this and called him a genius and said he was going to be very clever when he grows up because he is so good at imitating. But really, it was the glass in his eye just allowing him to see those faults. The only thing he seems to think are perfect are snowflakes.
They're uncorruptible.
Mm-hmm. So one day he takes his sledge to play where the other boys play. When the bold boys tie their sledges to people's carts and ride with them a ways, and it's capital time.
Medieval skitchin.
Yep. While they were all doing this, a great sledge came by, and it was painted all white, and there was a rider dressed in a white fur
Santa
and cap. Kay tied his sledge to this one, and they rode off.
Santa?
Center?
What?
Center?
Sinterklaas?
Or is it the cramp?
The driver turned and nodded pleasantly, as though they were acquainted, and every time Kay moved to untie his own sledge to end this particular joyride, the driver would turn and nod again, so he just stayed fastened and drove out of town.
So, that was a kidnapping.
The snow was now so thick he couldn't see in front of him, and he tried to untie himself, but couldn't. Calls out for help, but it could not be heard, and he was frightened and tries to say one of the prayers, but he can only remember his multiplication tables, so...
It happens a lot.
Wait.
They're very easy to mix up.
Wait, what?
When you kneel down at night and you're like, dear God, 7 times 2, 14, 7 times 3, 21, 7 times 4, 28, 7 times 5, 35.
Are you impressed yet? New pony, please.
Please heal my gout. I am but a boy.
Please, Lord, heal my gout times 3.
So wait, he just belongs to this guy now.
Yeah.
Right? They're out of town.
Yeah, they're riding far off, like over ditches and stuff, and he's getting scared. The snowflakes keep getting larger until they appeared like great white chickens.
Never seen that, personally.
Just like
I'll
Elsa.
have to take his word for it.
Well, have you ever tied your sledge to another sledge and then been kidnapped out of town?
In Denmark?
Yeah.
No.
Well,
not in Denmark.
Maybe that's something to try.
You go down South America way. It'll happen. This is just a PSA against taking rides from strangers.
Yeah, don't hitchhike or joyride or tie your shit to someone else's shit. All at once, the flakes sprang to the side and the sledge stopped, and the rider got out and revealed herself to be the Snow Queen.
The ice one?
Mm-hmm.
The ice woman?
Mm-hmm.
The same one?
Yes.
Okay.
But not the bee.
No. Grandma was wrong.
It was Grandma's headcanon.
Yeah, I mean,
which was incorrect.
I'm keeping an eye out just in case.
She invites him to warm up in her fur, and she sets him beside her on the sledge and wraps him in the fur. He feels as though he's in a snowdrift, and she says, "Are you still cold?" and then kisses him on the forehead, which sends ice down to his heart, which is already almost a lump of ice due to the mirror, and for a moment he feels like he's going to die, but then the cold doesn't bother him anyway.
Smell a lawsuit. Just like Elsa. Does it say those words?
No,
that was a Carmen edition.
I am sneaking in as many Frozen references as I can. I feel like I did one earlier that you might not have
Picked up on.
I mean, that's the whole movie right there, right?
Pretty much. He tells her not to forget his sledge, and then sees that it's bound to one of the white chickens, and the chicken is keeping up with Snow Queen's sledge, so that's all good.
So those are literal chickens?
Yes.
That was not just a metaphor?
Snow chickens.
Snow chickens.
She kisses him again, and he forgets about his grandmother and Gerda, and also the rest of his household, which presumably includes the parents that were briefly mentioned, but never again.
This does give me a Lion, Witch, in the Wardrobe vibe.
Kinda.
Yeah, she doesn't give him any Turkish delight, though, which is a shame.
What a jip.
Just a smacker on the face.
She does say she can't give him any more kisses, or she'll kiss him to death.
I believe that.
That's not disconcerting at all.
It sounds like it's not been going great.
Seems like a fair warning.
Kay looks at her and sees how beautiful she is, and she no longer seems to be made of ice and is just generally perfect. Waxes on about that for a while. He then tells her that he can do mental arithmetic and fractions, and he knows the square miles and number of inhabitants in the country. She just smiles at him, and he feels like he maybe doesn't know enough.
He needs more math.
To impress this beautiful woman.
It always works, 10 out of 10 times.
And
Math whizzes among you will know that's 100%.
That's how you get a lady's pants off.
7 times 6, 42. 7 times 7, 49.
Gordy, stop.
7 times 8, 56.
Gordy, this is going to get inappropriate.
7 times 9, 63.
Gordy, stop. They flew together higher up on a black cloud while the storm raged on below them.
Is she the demon?
And then there were wolves howling.
Is that a yes?
No.
Oh.
Wolves howled and the snow crackled, and above flew some screaming crows. And so Kay passed the long winter's night, and by day he slept curled at the Snow Queen's feet.
Is there a good twist we should be trying to guess?
Is there a mystery to solve?
That's what I want out of this story.
You guys can mystery machine this up all you want.
Okay.
Which one of you is Scooby?
Cricket.
Who wants Scooby?
Okay, so which one of you is Shaggy?
Who wants... I don't want any of that crew.
We need a total revamp.
Yeah.
I call Velma.
Hardy Boys only.
Alright.
Let's revamp Shaggy and Scooby and the gang and replace them with... I don't know.
People who do extreme sports.
Yeah. Shaun White. He'd be good here. There's lots of snow. Be highly mobile. It's my pick. Shaun White by himself.
Solving mysteries.
Shaun White Mystery Machine.
I think we're past the point where that could be a viable cartoon. I think his star isn't shining quite as bright as it used to.
You think Apollo Ono could make a comeback?
Yeah, probably.
We're gonna get all the winter sports legends to crack this crime.
Alright, so that's the end of the second story. Now for story of the third. Meanwhile, back in town, no one had any clue where Kay had gone.
Yeah, he didn't check in with anyone before he left.
Isn't he doing that with friends, though?
Yeah, like the boys saw him get tied to a sledge and disappear, and they didn't know anything else beyond that, so everyone just cried. And Gerda believed that he had to be dead and drowned in the nearby river, specifically. Spring came, and she just wanders outside and says aloud, "Kay is dead and gone."
To no one?
To the sunshine.
That's her mantra?
And the sunshine responds,
No!
"I don't believe it."
The sun did.
The sunshine.
The abstract concept of light
Yes.
told her.
The particle and the wave.
I think I would take the light's word over this girl, who presumably still believes that a snow bee is breathing on her window.
Was the sunshine refuting her, or was it having a conversation with her?
Both?
Was it trying to convince the townspeople that she was wrong, or was it just talking to her?
It's just talking to her.
The sunshine is in the Mystery Command Center, and he picked that up on the wireless.
Gerda then goes to the sparrows and says to them that Kay is dead and gone, and the sparrows say, we don't believe it.
So that's the second opinion.
Yep.
Does she need a third?
She does.
After this, she begins to doubt a little. Her
opinion.
Her own completely unsubstantiated opinion.
Right. And she decides to put on her brand new red shoes because Kay has never seen them before and is going to go to the river to see for herself if he is drowned in it. She goes early in the morning, kisses her grandmother goodbye. Again, parents don't apparently matter. They're present, they're still alive, but grandparents are the cool ones.
That's why Disney loved this story.
Wait.
They had to make this one.
Wait,
there's no parents in it? There's 2 kids and no parents?
The parents have no apparent influence over the children's actions. Only grandparents do.
Sign us up.
She sneaks out, and gets to the river, and asks it if it's taken Kay away from her, and then offers her red shoes for it to return him. She thought that the waves nodded to her, so she chucked her red shoes in, even though she loved them.
She thinks that this river's into foot stuff.
Likes shoes. It wants to look fabulous.
This is the way it is in Denmark.
Is this a common occurrence?
That you trade shoes for your dead loved ones
yeah,
to rivers?
You can just check in with the sun and the birds whenever you want to find a lost friend.
Is that why people are happy and healthy there?
Supposed to
so they
hear
just trade goods for their friends and family back?
Where the sunshine just flips you the bird. And the birds tell you to get bent.
Where we say, hey, we would like some rain, and then the sun's like, tornado! Still want rain, asshole?
The sun is only capable of providing the extreme version of whatever you ask for.
The sun picks favorites, and its favorite is Denmark.
Some of you want winter, some of you want summer. Today winter, tomorrow summer. Good luck, assholes.
It's just a roulette wheel of weather. You're gonna get whatever I feel like today.
Well, the river just washed the shoes back up on the bank, as though it couldn't take them from her without being able to give her Kay in return. She, however, just thinks she didn't throw them far enough. So she gets into a convenient boat that's just in the reeds, so that she can throw them out farther. But the boat is not anchored, because it's just in the reeds, and it floats off with her in it.
Don't get in vehicles.
It's the moral.
Just don't do it. Just don't go outside. They would have been fine if they just stayed home.
Playing with their heated pennies.
Mm-hmm.
We put this metal on the stove, then picked it up with our bare fingers.
So that we could talk to each other through the window.
This won't crack the glass at all.
Yeah, that's fine.
We don't have fingerprints anymore. So our future crime life will be fine. She's frightened, and she can't get to land. So she does her number 1 activity, which is crying. But only the sparrows can hear her. They can't help much, being sparrows. But they fly along the riverside and they cry out, here we are, just to comfort her a little bit. After a while, she starts thinking maybe the river will take her to Kay, so she cheers up.
Oh, I know what's happening now.
Mm-hmm.
So she's floating along. Her shoes are floating behind her, but she can't reach them.
So she did throw them.
She did throw them.
Despite the boat lurching when she got on it.
I don't think she ever gets those back. I don't think that ever happens.
They're just gone.
They're just floating near enough to her that she can see them, but far enough away that she's never going to reach them again. The boat sailed on for hours before it came to a large cherry orchard with a weird red house that had red and blue windows and a thatched roof. The house also had 2 wooden soldiers outside that presented arms to her, which made her wave to them before she sailed closer and saw that they were made of wood.
Wait, what? The arms?
The wood soldiers presented arms, so they
Guns?
moved. Yeah, and she waved at them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the river brought her closer. She's like, oh, they're wood.
The people.
Soldiers.
Yeah, and so that, why? What does it matter?
It doesn't.
Okay, move on.
Spoiler alert.
She makes an observation. Next.
Yep. Gerda called out now, and from the cottage there came an old woman wearing a hat that had painted flowers all over it and walking on a crutch. The old woman asked how this little girl had traveled so far, and then she reaches to the boat with her crutch and pulls it ashore and helps Gerda to dry land. Gerda's grateful, but a little bit afraid of this lady. She tells her whole life story to this old woman, and then asks if Kay...
That's what a grateful but frightened person would do.
Yeah, and asks if Kay had happened to pass this way. The woman says He hadn't, but he likely would, and told her not to be sorrowful, but to come chase the cherries and look at the flowers, each of which can tell a story of their own.
Bunch of chatty Cathys in Denmark.
Yeah.
Everything will talk to you.
Ironically.
She took Gerda inside the house and shut the door, and the weird windows made odd colors everywhere, and there was a bowl of cherries on the table that she could eat as many of as she wanted.
Don't do it.
And while she eats, the woman combed her hair.
Never eat weird food.
From old people.
If you end up in a magic thing. Like a magic house or something.
As the woman combed, she said she'd long been wishing for a young maiden like Gerda, and now Gerda must live with her, and they will be happy together. As she got her hair combed, Gerda thought less and less of Kay because the old woman could conjure, and though she was not a wicked witch...
She was just distracted by cool magic.
Yeah, well, she's conjuring a spell while she's combing her hair. Though she was not a wicked witch, she only conjured a bit for her own amusement, and now because she wanted to keep Gerda.
I conjure on the side. I dabble.
They weren't that good friends, apparently. She got dissuaded very easily.
After the conjuring, the old woman goes into the garden and conjures the rose trees to sink into the ground so that they would not remind Gerda of Kay. Because Gerda has told her entire life story.
Yeah.
Okay.
I lost my thought.
Sorry. Then she takes Gerda into the garden, and the garden has every other flower on the earth, all blooming at the same time. And so Gerda plays delightedly before going in and sleeping on a silk pillow and basically just being treated as well as though she were a queen herself. And so passed many days with her playing and sleeping, but she always felt that one flower was missing from the garden. One day she was looking at the flowers painted on the lady's hat, and she sees a rose among them, because the lady forgot to conjure that away. And she realizes that that's what's been missing from the garden and goes to look for them. When she can't find roses, she starts crying. And her tears fall where the rose bushes had sunk into the earth, and the bushes grew up from the ground. And then she sees them and remembers that Kay exists, and that she was trying to find him.
Okay.
Good job, I guess.
Roundabout way to get through that detour.
Yeah. She then asks the roses if Kay is dead, and the roses said no, they've been in the ground with the dead, and he's definitely not there.
We checked. We checked literally every dead body, because we knew you'd ask.
We heard how you went on. We knew.
That's a great plan, though.
Is it?
Like, that's good intel. I feel like more people should ask flowers if people are dead or not, because they can check.
It's worth a shot.
Is this person in the ground with you?
If they died near there, they might be drinking them right now.
Right.
Really?
You just feel around, be like, oh yeah, Timmy's gone.
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
Timmy's gone. He's right down here.
I just tapped him.
Some sweet nutrients, though. I'm gonna bloom real nice.
So thanks for that, at least.
So she goes around to all of the flowers in the garden to ask, but they only knew their own fairy tales of history. There were a lot of flowers and a lot of stories. I picked out 3 to share with this, but there are more.
Uh-huh.
They knew fairy tales of history.
Yes.
So not really history.
Yeah. The tiger lily tells her a story of a Hindu woman throwing herself on her dead husband's pyre. And while she burned, she thought of her son who had lit the fire in the first place.
Good story.
Thanks, Alanis Morissette.
The hyacinth tells her of 3 maidens who dance in the moonlight, but are not witches. They're just like dancing.
Just into that.
Until a sweet fragrance draws them into the woods. In the thickest part of the woods, there are 3 coffins, and then fireflies flew over them, and then the hyacinth asks, do they sleep or are they dead?
You're telling the story, Hyacinth.
Yeah.
It's up to you. It's like Brando at the end of Apocalypse Now. Just a bunch of gibberish.
She's scolding each of these flowers for
wasting her damn time.
Basically. Asks several more, then she gets to the narcissus, which shouts, I can see myself! I can see myself!
Well, you would.
And then tells her a story about seeing a half-undressed maiden washing her body while holding a bodice in her hand.
Sweet.
And then stretching out her legs.
This segment has painted gardens in a different light for me.
As just
fields
like of perverts?
No, a clinical ward.
Oh.
For flowers.
You guys need to stay in here.
Yeah.
Until you
We're going to keep you guys together in here.
Because we can't let you spread wherever you want anymore. You need to be contained.
And after he tells basically the story of, I guess, being a peeping Tom flower, repeats that he can see himself. Gerda tells the flower it need not tell her such things. This is inappropriate for children.
How old is she?
She's a kid. I mean, she's young enough to be crying and everything. Aged. So 6, 8, somewhere.
Oh, that young?
I don't know.
Somewhere.
Okay.
I don't think she's over 10 at this point. So she makes her way out of the garden, and once she's finally free of the garden, which is apparently an eternal summertime, she sees that it's autumn, actually, and that she has wasted a significant amount of time.
Certainly.
And now she's 40.
Kay is certainly dead.
Kay is deceased. She's unstuck in time. It's all just chaos from here on out.
That is the end of the third story.
What must the mind of a fairy tale author be like, where they are presented with a pretty simple problem to try and explain? Like it seems like this story begins with the problem of, why are some people dicks? And the answer was, oh, those are just demon shards from a mirror from this demon headmaster's school.
If that is your question, then you it's asked and answered immediately. It's fine. Like, I'll take you at your word for it, I guess. You don't have to go into this long thing about these weird kids. It's an interesting question. I don't know why they have an idea in mind.
Yeah.
Clearly he started with a concept.
Yeah. Some people have these shards in them.
Yeah, and he's like, and I'm going to tell the story of one of them. But in order to do this, I have to shoehorn in every random detail and every stupid detour that they go down. This is all part of my vision, and I will not compromise it.
My vision involves a lot of roses, a few bees, some grandmothers.
We need to hear all these flower stories.
Rowdy boys tying sleds to things.
Do we really need to go down and hear what the flowers are talking about? All of them?
Yeah, all the flowers have some messed up stories. Those are the most inappropriate for children stories about like dead people and suicide and watching women undress through windows.
So this is teenage boy poetry.
Yeah, essentially. Surlaloon does a really cool thing where they annotate a lot of these tales. So, let's see where this was. Maybe it wasn't Surlaloon, maybe it was Wikipedia, which then brings into question how accurate that could possibly be. But I read somewhere that Hans Christian Andersen had like flirted with this lady who turned him down, and the Snow Queen was his representation of her.
That makes sense to me. It's a story of vindication.
Yeah.
More than it is...
Why that is shards from a demon headmaster mirror.
I mean, that's fine. I honestly don't have an issue with that setup.
Part.
Like, yeah, like they have a demon mirror, it smashes and all the shards fly. Like, that's fine.
It'll turn some people into miserable grumpets.
That's fine. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
So far, the execution is garbage. Because the shards have mattered.
Not much.
How much? 1%, maybe?
If
like,
that.
they turned him from a kid to a kid who doesn't like stuff.
Well,
right?
They
these
amplified
flowers,
it.
These flowers are gross. I don't like them. You're ugly when you cry.
I'm going to kick this box.
I'm going to be mean to you and mock my grandma.
Yep, that's every 6-year-old nowadays, right?
Yeah. Yep. I've taught some who've had some mirror
Some shards
shards
in them?
there.
Is this unusual
Not
behavior?
terribly. Especially not among the boys. So,
Are you going to start telling them?
They have a demon mirror inside them.
Like, you're a shard kid.
Get that mirror shard out of your eye.
It's a definite shard kid.
I think that's a good code.
It's a good code. It might be a good way to open yourself up to a lawsuit.
That too. It was a Swedish opera singer named Jenny Lind that Andersen met in 1840, and he fell in love with her. She was not interested, but they did become friends. But apparently he still didn't get over it, so...
Well, he showed her.
According to Carol Rosen, Andersen was inspired to model the icy-hearted Snow Queen on Lind after she rejected him as a suitor.
Yep, got her good.
Yep.
Look what you could have had.
Sick burn.
The author of this weird story. Do we,
You could have been a nice queen.
I mean,
But you had to be an ice queen.
his cheekbones are pretty impressive. She could have had that, too.
For what?
I don't know.
To do what with?
Holding on to
Cut
it?
meat?
Yeah.
Sharp enough to peel a potato with. Okay. I think there are two things we could try to do here. Oh, we're getting some cheekbone.
I mean, look at that face. If you were an opera singer, how could you resist?
You could drive him like a bike.
I think we can go through frame by frame and find out all the parallels to Frozen.
Sure.
And we can try to figure out what might happen next. Are either of those fun exercises?
I think both are. So who cries the most in Frozen? Because that's Gerda.
Who cries the most?
Yeah.
Do the sisters cry?
Anna, probably.
They must cry
I mean,
some.
Anna's probably the Gerda stand-in, like meant to be Gerda, and then
Yeah.
they changed her name to be something that was
And
a little bit less
I mean, Elsa's the one who gets
Gerda.
Elsa's the one who initially gets bent out of shape and leaves first, right?
So she's kind of Kay and the Snow Queen.
Yeah, she's a little bit of both.
She's an amalgam.
She's their union.
Uh-huh.
Their gross union.
Hans
Hans.
Christian's and Andersen's rejected suitor, but in a male form.
Olaf is the gremlin. We know this already.
Fact.
He's the demon who causes all the problems.
I want to find
You're on notice, Josh Gad.
I want to find some interpretation of Frozen that paints Olaf as the mastermind villain. There's kind of a villain in that movie, right?
It's him and Jar Jar.
There's that guy, that prince who might not be a prince, but
Yeah, it's
is
Hans.
married, something like that. Is that Hans?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, what's the good one's name?
Kristoff.
Yeah.
Kristoff. That's right. Yeah. Two princes. Two princesses. Where'd they get that idea?
Crazy.
Double the fun. Frozen 2014.
Two
15?
princes, two princesses, no marriage.
14, I think.
Yep.
Maybe 13.
Who knows?
It's a while ago now.
That's my review of Frozen. Double the princesses. Look at that.
Gory back of box review.
None of them got married. They transformed the genre.
So parallel set.
They did get married, though.
Did they?
Yeah.
Who knows? It doesn't matter.
When?
The end.
No, they didn't.
That's implied wedding.
Tyler.
The sisters.
There was a wedding in that movie. They just didn't finish it.
They were setting up for a potential future wedding, but the relationship is still blossoming.
Well, there's like 3 weddings in that movie then, because there's also the troll one.
Anyway.
The sisters are in lesbians, right? Because it's supposed to be like the romantic, the love saves her,
Yeah.
but it's the sister.
Yeah.
So they're together, right?
It's familial.
Did I watch that movie wrong?
You should have had the words on.
The subtitles?
No, the words. Turn the words on the movie next time.
Okay.
Watch the movie with words.
They start packaging those separately, and sometimes it's hard to find them.
It's DLC.
Yeah, I paid for the movie, and then they're like, "Do you want to like it's only
Want the words,
$5.99 to get the words too? Do you want that?" I went, "No,
I'll follow along.
I know it." And then Elsa and Anna are lesbians, and they get married at the end,
Mm-hmm.
and good for them.
That's why they hold hands during the skating scene.
Yeah, why else would they touch each other like that?
There's no reason.
You only
First-
hold hands when you're married.
First comes holding hands, then comes marriage. It's the law.
It's
And then-
child law.
And then comes snow bees.
And a bird.
Well,
A very big bird.
well, we can also try to figure out what's coming next because we're halfway through this story.
Yeah.
And we have this respite to get our bearings and see where we might be going next.
I don't know if I am comfortable doing that, because thus far things have not happened in a way that I would have foreseen.
Oh yeah? How did you think this was going to go?
A little more straightforward.
Well, Tyler, we've been doing this for nearly 2 years now, so I don't know why you'd think that.
I guess we could take a shot in the dark and just hope that it comes up.
Okay. It's worked out for you sort of in the past.
Oh?
You've been not as far off as you think you have. Like with the story also from Denmark with the bird, dead crow.
Where diarrhea was thrown in an old man's face.
Yeah. So you weren't as far off as you thought you would be with that, so
Somebody else go. I need to ruminate.
So, I mean, these kids have to get back together at the end. And maybe they get married, maybe they don't. Maybe what happens is they find each other and she takes on one of the shards. Because he's double evil and she's good. And they decide we want to be together. We're children. We're ready to get married. We've had the talk. We know what bees are. So it's time. But we can't get married if I'm good and you're double evil. You got to give me one of your mirror shards. And he kisses it into her. They kiss and it goes out of his heart and it goes down into her heart. And then she becomes evil and then they get evil married. And the Snow Queen is
the officiant.
Just watches.
Is she the officiant?
She's there. She planned it.
She's watching and she's jerking.
she's loving it.
She and the Narcissus.
I'm loving it. Copyright McDonald's via the Snow Queen in this movie.
She's there with her flower buddy, who both take turns watching.
just cranking on their own stuff.
In this sexually deviant Danish tale, which was made into the Frozen movie, brought to you by McDonald's. I'm loving it.
Tyler, your prediction?
I'm waiting for the lion to show up, who talks, to give one of them a sword.
Okay.
Because the sword is important for defeating the Snow Queen. I know this.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I'm on board with Gordy.
Think I got it?
Yeah.
I feel pretty confident.
There's a sword first.
I think a lion will show up and give them a sword, and then the sword isn't used, and then that weird fluid exchange happens. And shards are swapped.
Evil heart STD.
Yeah. I feel good about this.
Real prediction, he's probably right that the heart shard goes, at least. But I imagine that the eyeball shard sticks around.
Okay.
As, like, a way to incorporate a moral or something.
Sure. Important cat alert. Cricket is now upside down, and it's cute. Oh.
Nope, she decided not to. She said, what?
I alerted the media, literally. Nope, can't make that true. We have some birds in here so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, but are they helping?
Kinda.
They're being moral support.
They're pushing Gerda in the right direction.
No, your friend's not dead. He's good.
Yeah.
Go get him. We're with you.
You're not dying.
No, you're not drowning. You're in a boat. We're with you.
Don't worry about it. You're good.
Yeah.
You cool.
We'll see about that. Skeptical about these birds. They have yet to pull their weight.
There's no numbers.
What?
Which is ironic because Kay seems fascinated with numbers.
He's really good at arithmetic.
Oh yeah, there has to be a math scene where that really pays off, where he has to like calculate the angle of their exit, and he works it out.
You think that there's payoff for something in the story?
I think so,
and that payoff involves math.
Of all the things that might have payoff, I think it's his obsession with calculation. He's a math genius.
It's just weird that there's not like 12 of whatever or 7 blanks, those reoccurring numbers and everything.
Well, in spite of this,
but he loves math.
In spite of this being a story about what happens to one of the mirror shards, it is focusing an awful lot more on things not Kay.
Yeah.
So a significant amount of the story is told from either Gerda's point of view,
or flowers,
or flowers,
or just whatever,
or
the
kind
sun,
of just like both of them.
Yeah.
The river.
So like the very beginning is about a hobgoblin.
Mm-hmm.
The second part's about both of them, told by an omniscient narrator.
Yeah.
So it's not third person limited to Kay, so we wouldn't be getting his own interpretations of things.
Yeah, we start to get his interpretations, right?
Briefly. So the only time Kay is ever kind of in charge of the story is when he ties
When
his
he's kidnapped.
sledge and gets kidnapped.
Really taking charge of your story.
And then he gets Turkish delight, but it's kisses instead.
Yeah.
So.
Alright, things to look forward to. Math.
Math for sure.
Shard sex.
Yeah.
And an ending, I guess.
Yeah, just
A
it
completion.
being over.
Yeah.
I like it.
All these things await you in part 2.
Alright, so be sure to tune in next week for the other half of Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen,
Frozen.
featuring definitely all of these things, 100% guaranteed. Our guarantees, spoiler alert, are not guarantees at all.
No, they're happening, you'll see. Or your money back.
If the story doesn't, we will.
We'll make
That's
them
our
happen
guarantee.
one way or another.
You'll cram shard sex into this one way or another.
That's our way of guaranteeing things. If the story doesn't, we'll do it.
All right, good.
Yep, be sure to check us out on Facebook, our blog, wtfolklorepodcast.blogspot.com.
There's links to all that. Just look where you found us.
Yeah, we gotta read the second story now, so bye! Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
Tra-la-di-di-hi-di-ho, hi-di-hi-di-hi-di-ho, tra-la-di-di-hi-di-ho, happily ever after. Tra-la-di-di-hi-di-ho, hi-di-hi-di-hi-di-ho, tra-la-di-di-hi-di-ho, she lived happily ever after.
This has been What the Folklore. Thanks for listening to our show. If you have any feedback for us, you can leave it either by Gmail or Facebook. Our Gmail account is wtfolklore@gmail.com, and our Facebook page can be found at facebook.com/WTfolklore. Feel free to send in stories if you have any particularly odd pieces of folklore or mythology that you would like to hear us talk about. Special thanks to the Brobdingnagian Bards for the use of their song Happily Ever After from their album Brobdingnagian Fairy Tales.